Welcome to our review of MACS activities since September 2022. For us, it's been a relatively quiet year. One of the major effects of the pandemic was a reduction in applications. Furthermore, the economic downturn has reduced donations to all charities, not just MACS. But there are still plenty of positive activities to share with you. In the last 12 months, the trustees have met 6 times, 4 on Zoom and 2 face-to-face. Zoom meetings are of course more economical and take less time because there's no need to travel. However, there are some things that are more easily discussed in person, and so for around half our meetings we shall continue to meet face-to-face. WhatsApp phone calls are a godsend for keeping in touch with our colleagues in Malawi, which allows our project officer, Eileen, to contact them several times a week. The most important cogs in the MACS wheel are our colleagues in Malawi. Grafid Tioni has now been our leader there for 30 years. With his background in government finance, he ensures that your money is spent appropriately, plans are followed accurately, here measuring the foundations of a new primary school, and smooths over potential sources of friction with consummate diplomacy. But woe betide anyone who tries to deliver short. His expert advisor on construction matters is Johnny Somber, with his deep knowledge of construction management and quantity surveying. Employing such a talented professional is money well spent, as we will see later. As a result of the pandemic, our communication with many of our colleagues in Malawi has necessarily been fragmented. It was therefore a great joy that we were able to restore the annual visit of our project officer, Eileen, accompanied by Colin, our treasurer, and myself. After a 4-year gap, there was much to catch up on. Foremost in our minds was the horror of Cyclone Freddy. After suffering Tropical Storm Anna and Tropical Cyclone Gombe last year, Freddy magnified the climate catastrophe that is battering Malawi. The worst hit areas were in the south, Palombe, Mulanje and Chirudzulu, and the area around Blantyre and Chikwawa. But other areas, especially around Mangochi, were not spared. The number of people who died is incredible. However, to be entirely sanguine, they are not the souls we can do much for now. The people who needed, and still need, our help are those who survived, but whose homes were demolished and whose crops were devastated. This just before harvest time, which is likely to be a source of great hunger as the year goes on. At Chilumbwe near Blantyre, these rocks came crashing down at 1 a.m. while people slept. 15 households were annihilated. Daukira, near Chirudzulu, was simply drowned in mud. Nothing of the 59 houses remains. The homeless living in tents are afraid to go back and wait to be granted somewhere new where they can rebuild their lives. MACS immediately assigned £2,000 from general funds to support the stricken and elected to make recovery from the cyclone the object of their annual appeal. You, our supporters, have responded wonderfully with a further £12,500. These funds have been sent to the Anglican Council of Malawi for them to use as they see fit. That money is being used not just for food, but also, more importantly, for seeds, fertilizer and other agricultural needs in an effort to assuage the devastating effects of crop destruction. You will be aware that we have had a major focus on solar power in the last couple of years. We have funded installations in all 3 health centres in the Diocese of Lake Malawi, and in 4 of those in the Diocese of Southern Malawi. Last year, we reported to you on the installation of a solar system at St Michael's Girls' Secondary School in Malindi, the subject of our major appeal for 2022. This project was completed last November, and the girls and the staff are delighted that evening homework can now be completed in a comfortable light rather than in the gloom of tele lamps or the torch of the odd smartphone whose battery hasn't completely given out. This is important because outages on the national grid are still common, and in Malindi they tend to be worse because their electricity is routed through Mozambique. We have had one further electrical project this year. At Liwaladzi Health Centre in the Diocese of Lake Malawi, the staff houses had no access to electrical power, even though the Eskom power lines ran through the campus. As a result, it was impossible to retain the services of a medical assistant, one lasting 2 months and the next 2 1 month each. MACS therefore funded the installation of electrical power to the 4 staff houses there, a project completed within the last month. Already, indications are that recruiting staff will be much more successful. We returned to Malindi once more, but to St Martin's Hospital this time. The hospital was founded in 1898 as a clinic staffed by one nurse who cared for sick missionaries and their families. Not surprisingly, some of the houses there have become dilapidated to the extent that they are uninhabitable. The paucity of good housing in a place that is some distance from larger centres and which has poor roads has made staff retention difficult. Being on the lake shore and having a steep hill behind it, there's virtually no room for new houses. Last year we reported on 2 houses that had been refurbished. This year we have restored 2 more at half the cost of a new build. This is something that few other charities are prepared to take on. Happily, Johnny Somba had been consulted before renovations began. He advised the building of a stout wall and drainage system behind the houses to protect against water draining off the steep hill behind, not something that had been considered before. Without that extra construction, those 2 houses would have been swept away by the torrent that came down the hill during the cyclone. That was money well spent, thanks to expert advice. MACS has not undertaken major health projects this year. However, we were able to see and approve the refurbished labour ward and theatre suite at St Anne's Hospital in Kota, completed 18 months ago. Areas that had been condemned by the Ministry of Health and threatened to cause closure of the maternity unit. The local community has shown its appreciation by flocking once more for maternity care at St Anne's, despite being able to obtain similar services at the nearby government district hospital for free. And all this made possible by a very generous legacy from a former midwife. Please don't think we have forgotten churches. Although we do not normally fund a complete build, we do have a history of helping with the supply of a good roof, provided that Graffid finds the construction of the walls to be of a satisfactory size and quality. This one at Kamala in Magamero parish was completed within the last year. New ordinands are supplied with bicycles in order to travel around their parishes. Almost as important is the training in cycle maintenance and repairs, so essential when used on dirt tracks. AfriCycles recycle second-hand cycles from around the world and rebuild them in Malawi. Also in a restoration vein is the conversion of a decrepit classroom at Chilema Ecumenical Training Centre, completed a couple of months ago, together with all the furniture, plus a grant for books. This has become the library required by Taveta, a sort of Malawi equivalent to Ofsted, in order for the centre to be registered as a training centre. As in the past, we are supporting 10 women in each of the 2 6-month courses this year, funding 90% of their fees as they learn about homecraft, health, sanitation, agriculture and business management. Which brings us to education in general, an area MACS has targeted since its inception. For many primary school children, teaching takes place under a tree because of the paucity of classrooms. This is Mpondus on the southern lake shore, a primary school with over 4,500 pupils, a number that would cause any head teacher in this country to take long-term sick leave. With only 19 classrooms, 33 classes every day must be taken outdoors, which is out of the question when the heavens open in the rainy season. Happily, we have a standard double classroom and office design honed over the years by our patron, Jane Arden. These buildings have stood the test of time, both in terms of assault by ebullient pupils and by tropical storm. Our insistence on involvement by the community ensures that the community feels a real sense of ownership. They supply bricks, sand and water. We supply the rest. Here at Mitembo in the central region, 21 village headmen quite spontaneously got together to form their own committee and request a new block from the Diocese of Lake Malawi to serve their villages. 14 of them turned out to greet us in order to show their gratitude and to request a second classroom. At nearby Katete, the recent construction of a new classroom block so impressed the local people that they raised the funds to build themselves a second block using the same architectural plans, i.e., the cost of MACS to one building stimulated the construction of two. But of course, there is more to education than bricks and mortar. Although primary school education is free, students and their families need to pay fees for secondary education. These that do well in the primary school leaving certificate may be selected by the government to attend Malosa Secondary School or St Michael's Girls Secondary School at Malindi, where fees, set by the Diocese of Upper Shiri, have risen sharply over the last 3 years. For many years, we have funded bursaries for those students deemed by the School Bursary Committee to be the most needy, fathers having died from illness or traffic accidents, parents only being subsistence farmers, the last piece of land or the last cow having already been sold. Although the fees are much lower in the community day secondary schools, there are still students in desperate need in order to continue their education. With all bursary students, we follow their termly reports and request letters from them each year to ensure that they are still enrolled and that our money, your money, is being properly utilised. Trustees have to bear in mind that once we have adopted a student, we are guaranteeing to fund their education for the full 4 years. Given the spiralling cost of fees, at the end of last year, we felt compelled to reduce the number of bursaries. Furthermore, with general funds being low, we were scarcely able to fund any further building. However, with 2 massively generous donations, we are now able to reverse that policy, funding 4 new students in their first year at both Malosa and Malindi, and 10 new students at both Manga and Nkopi CDSS. We have also contracted to build 5 new double classroom blocks, 1 each at Manga and Matopi CDSS, and 3 at primary schools, 1 in the Diocese of Upper Shiri and 2 in the Diocese of Lake Malawi. The people we are supporting, be they in education, health or the church, are the future of Malawi. They are the people we are targeting with the funds that you give. From those who have been helped in the past and those who will be helped in the future, a huge thank you.